What is energy? If you Google the definition, you're going to find many different things derived from physical sciences. You'll see words like strength, power, work, radiation. But when witches talk about energy, we're talking about something a little bit different usually. And so in today's episode, we're going to talk about energy, what it is, how we use it in our spell work and our rituals, how we use it for self-healing and in our magical practices as well. So merry meet, I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin, and I am here tonight talking about working with energy. So welcome to those joining us. We're here on a new day for the summer. So this is the lives this summer will be taking place on Tuesdays instead of Wednesdays. If you are with us live, you can leave questions and comments in the chat. There's a Q&A at the end. I'll also be watching the comment stream as we go. If you're watching back in replay, you can also leave questions and comments. I'll go back later and answer all the questions there. And also don't forget to leave a heart or a thumbs up anywhere in the video. That helps us get this out to the feed of more people. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. I see Cindy's here. Merry meet, Cindy. Hi. All right, so let's dive in, and we're going to start by talking about energy, what it is. We'll talk about the different forms we might be using it in, how we can use it, how we can raise it, and also how we can balance our own energy inside for self-healing. Okay, so we are going to start with energy from a scientific perspective. Those of you who followed me for a while, you probably know that I am a math and science teacher as well. That's my muggle job. So I think it's interesting to talk about this from the scientific perspective first, and then dive into more of the metaphysical ideas behind energy. Because honestly, even though we say that science and magic and witchcraft don't mix, that they're two different things, I actually think they are a lot more similar than we think, and that in reality, when we say they don't mix or they don't really gel together, it's because science hasn't actually caught up to what we as witches and practitioners of magic know exists. So we'll talk about more about that as well. So from a scientific perspective, what we know is that the energy that we know of, and I will stress this very much, the forms of energy that we know of, which means that there are likely to be forms of energy that science does not know about yet. But all of the forms that we know of fall into a range of frequencies that can either be detected through our senses, through the physical senses, or can be detected through scientific instruments. So for example, visible light is a very easy one to talk about. These are vibrations that we can see. They show up as different colors for us. But there are other types of energies that maybe we can't see or we can't experience through our senses, but they can be picked up on scientific equipment nonetheless. So for example, we have the electromagnetic spectrum. We have which is invisible, but present nevertheless. We have radio waves, right? That we can't see them, but we can hear them when they're channeled through a receiver. We have TV waves, we have UV waves, we have microwaves, we have X-rays, we have radiation. So there are all these different forms of energy that we can either see or we can experience somehow in the physical world. Other waves, like sound waves, are things that we can hear. But there are many types of waves that cannot be seen or heard or detected by any scientific equipment. And I stress yet because I do believe that science hasn't really caught up to where all of this is yet. As witches, this is usually what we're talking about when we talk about energy. We're not usually necessarily talking about the electromagnetic spectrum. We're talking about that energy that we can feel. What we're really talking about is the subtle energy, most of which is in our body. So I'm going to start by kind of going through what is subtle energy, what is personal energy, what is the energy of the cosmos, the sun, the moon, the deities, the elements. All of these things carry energy as well. So let's start from our own personal experience. What is personal energy? So personal energy is the energy within, just like we'd expect from the definition. It emanates from the physical body, but is not necessarily of the physical body. It includes the non-physical systems like the chakras or the nadi lines, which we'll talk about in more detail later in the episode. It can be felt by many people. Some can't always feel it. I'm going to give you some exercises later on that will help you feel it, so we at least get on the same board with that. Um, Most of the time, energy, this type of energy that we're talking about, can't really be seen, though there are some people who can see auras and can see different kinds of energy, but we can definitely feel it. Now, the interaction between the physical body and this energetic body is what creates the aura. And our personal energy goes by a couple of different names depending on the tradition or the system you're studying. We're going to talk about two main ones today, chi and prana, because when we look through the text on witchcraft, these are the two words that we're going to see pop up the most often. But there are other types of energy or other ways we can describe energy. Different systems might call it odic force, pneuma, ruach. These are all different words that we might see. Essentially, these are all the same thing. We're talking about personal energy within the body. We might also be talking about energy that's in other beings around us. And in Chinese medicine in particular, there is this stress on the fact that non living things also carry this energy qi. So, like I said, the two main forms that we're going to hear people talk about in kind of witchcraft or magical communities are going to be chi and prana. They're very similar to each other, though they have some differences. So, I'm going to start with chi. Chi is known as life force. It basically underlies and unites everything that exists. And it, like I mentioned, it's in both living and non living things. Now, there are three main forms that chi can be divided into. There is the celestial chi, so that is said to be chi that kind of comes from the above. And so you're going to notice as I explain this, this sounds very much like what many of us believe as witches, right? So there's this energy above us, it's called celestial chi. This is coming from the sun, the stars, the moons, the planets. There is animal chi, that's the type of chi that we have because we're animals. It flows through animals. And I would also probably, um, I'm not sure they would classify the chi of plants as being animal. I think it would fall under the next category, which is terrestrial chi. So terrestrial chi comes from the earth and can be harnessed by people. Okay, so what happens, just like prana, which we'll talk about in a moment, chi can become weakened, it can become imbalanced, it can become stuck, it can become stagnant, and it's very common for this to happen. So, not, I would say probably 99% of people have some chi that's stuck or some prana that's got some we've got some stagnant prana somewhere. Now, in traditional Chinese medicine, the main go to on how to get your energy flowing properly would be through acupuncture or acupressure. And this is kind of the main way that energy would get rebalanced in the body. Now, in the traditional Chinese medicine system, where qi comes from, there are known to be 14 meridians. These are energy pathways. And there are over 2,000 acupoints, which are basically triggers in the physical body that will actually stimulate a change in the energetic body underneath it. Now, when we access them through the physical body, we're then going to change the energy the way it flows. So if we've got some energy that's kind of moving in a stuck or stagnant way, and we can stimulate it in the physical body, we're going to open up that pathway underneath. So I would like to share with you two different acupoints. You don't actually have to go to an acupuncturist to do this, though I do highly recommend if you've never been to one. Try it. It can be really a fantastic experience if you're experiencing some kind of a pain that's been there for a while. I was having a lot of neck issues, and my acupuncturist was able to fix that for me. But just in overall balancing, acupuncture can be very good. If you can't get to an acupuncturist or you're afraid of needles, you can try acupressure at home. So I'm going to share with you 2 points. The first one is called large intestine number 4. So this is the way it would be like medically differentiated from the other points, but it has a lot of nicknames. So one of the nicknames of this point is called the Union Valley, the Hand Valley Point. That's because it's in our hand. I'll show you in a second. And sometimes people call this the Great Eliminator, which is why I chose this one today, because I know a lot of us are wanting to release negative energy or kind of get rid of our anxiety or kind of our stress, our more negative emotions, and this is a good point for you. Okay, so the large intestine 4, by its name, what it means is it connects to the large intestine meridian. That's one of those 14 meridians in the body. Now, it doesn't mean that this is going to only be used for your large intestine. It just, that's the name of it. But this particular point is very good for anxiety, stress, headaches, toothaches, neck pain, and a variety of other things that can kind of relax the system. Now, to use this point, to access this point, you're going to go into the webbing in between your thumb and your pointer finger. And what typically will happen is if you find an acupressure point in a lot of ways, the acupressure points and the trigger points of like trigger point massage fall into kind of similar areas. So what that means is many of our acupressure points are a little bit sore. So if you get into this part of your body and kind of move around a little bit until you find kind of the most tender region here. And then what you're going to do is, like, I like to grip it with my thumb and my pointer finger in my other hand, and you're just going to massage it. But you can also do it from the front. I just find it more effective if you grip it from front and back. Okay, and then you're just going to massage this point. And I recommend a clockwise or a counterclockwise kind of motion. And you can do this for about a minute or so. And what people might find is that it brings their stress down. So for my students, I have a lot of students who, when they go to take their big exams or their finals or their AP tests, they get a lot of test taking anxiety. And so I tell them to use this point because you could just have this in your lap and nobody really knows what you're doing. So it's really just a great way to bring your energy down. Now, I will mention that this is a point that is counterindicated in pregnancy. So if you're pregnant, this point is actually used past 37 weeks to stimulate labor. So you just want to avoid that point if you are pregnant. Otherwise, anybody can safely use the point. Okay, so if you've got anxiety, stress, all of that, the next time you kind of feel it amping up, try the Great Eliminator, large intestine 4, and see if that helps. Now, a second point I'm going to show you is called lung 2. Lung 2 is in this little area where the shoulder meets the body. So right underneath your clavicle, which is this bony section right here, you're going to kind of find this. I think of it as like a little V-shaped section right here. And so you just go into that spot. And just like with the other spot, we are looking for the most tender region. Okay, so you're just going to kind of play around with it. Kind of, like I do is I find the bony ridge right here, then just kind of move down into that little like spot here underneath it, and then just start sort of playing around till you find a spot that's a little more tender than the others. There, I just found it in me. Okay, so this one has the nickname is Cloud Gate. I love this one because it disperses the clouds of grief, loss, and sadness. So this is a very good point for people who are feeling depressed. If you've lost someone recently, or you're thinking about a loss that you've had, if grief is coming up for you, this is a great point to use. All you got to do is take your finger, I suggest the pointer finger, find the point, that most tender spot in the area, and then you're going to just massage in circles, counterclockwise or clockwise, for about a minute. And like I said, this one can help bring down the clouds of grief. But on top of it, this is an excellent point for anybody who has asthma, breathing issues. Here in Los Angeles, they call it June gloom. We get kind of a lot of smog at this time of year. It's hard for people to breathe who have asthma. This is a really good point for opening up the chest. Also, a really good point for immunity, too. So if you want to boost your immunity, try Cloud Gate or Lung 2. All right, so that is just our little dive into traditional Chinese medicine. And besides acupuncture and acupressure, Qigong is also used to move stuck and stagnant energy in the body and to basically balance the qi. Okay, so let's talk about prana. Now, prana is probably what I use most often. So when I teach in our Shadow Seekers membership, or if we do any rituals where we're using energy in our coven, most of the time I'm going to talk about prana. But having studied both traditional Chinese medicine and some acupressure and studied like Ayurveda and like tantric yoga, what I recognize is though there are differences here, we're talking about the same thing. Prana is life force, sometimes called breath. The belief is that your breath, your very breath, is your life, the life energy inside of you. If you think about like a sponge that is dry, that's your physical body. If you soak it in water and the water permeates the sponge, that water is your prana. When we die, we lose that energy. The physical body remains, that energy goes somewhere else, and that is the sponge goes back to being dry again. Now, this energy exists in the pranamaya kosha. So just like we were talking about in Chinese medicine, there is 14 meridians in tantric yoga, Ayurveda. There is 72,000 nadis. Nadis are energy channels as well. So why 14 in traditional Chinese medicine and 72,000 in this system? Don't really know the answer to that, but the idea is that there are energy channels in your body. Now, prana can be stuck and get stagnant just like your chi can. And what that means is that it's not flowing properly through the channels. Now, if we want to rebalance it, unlike in Chinese medicine where most of the time a person would go to an acupuncturist, maybe they would take some herbs, different things like that, try some qigong. From this system, we would do asanas, which are movements, flow style movements like yoga, like we might traditionally think of yoga in the West, pranayama, which is breath work, kundalini kriyas, which are repetitive movements that break up stuck and stagnant energy. Meditation can actually help you move your energy as well. Um, so, with practice, a person can learn how to move their prana. So, there are some who talk about this Kundalini Shakti, which is basically energy that's sort of at the base of your spine. And we can learn through practice and exercises, we can learn to raise that energy, to draw it up into different parts of our body, to cycle it through, and then to lower it back down. We can learn how to utilize it for our spell work and our magical practices. This would all be considered more advanced energy practice, but at least today we're talking about kind of the starting point. What are the definitions? How do we do some of this? I'm going to share some exercises as well. Now, if you are interested in taking energy work to a higher level, I would recommend joining us in Shadow Seekers the next time we're open, because we do all of this in much greater depth than what I'm going to talk about tonight. But I will be sharing, like I said, I'll be sharing a bit of exercises with you as well. But before I do that, I just wanted to talk about a few other types of energy a witch might talk about. So, for example, besides our personal energy, we might talk about earth energy. Earth energy emanates from the body of the earth. It's sometimes called mana, and it's usually perceived as feminine, usually. Though in reality, our energies have, all energies kind of have different components of them, but most of the time we would probably consider earth energy to be feminine. Now we can draw that energy up from the earth into the body. We can circulate it there. We can do different things with it once we get it there. And then we can also take energy in our body and we can release it back down into the earth to be recycled. And so the beauty of the earth is that its ability to recycle our energy is phenomenal. So if we have really negative energy inside of us, we don't have to worry about it hurting the earth. We literally can release it into the earth and allow the earth to do its job, which is to recycle it. And then we can draw fresh earth energy or mana back into us. And according to traditional Chinese medicine, in fact, we need that. We literally need to replenish our own energy through the energy of the earth. We might call this earthing. And so one way to do that is to draw an energy from the body part that is touching the earth. And so there's a lot of value in taking our shoes and even our socks off and walking barefoot so that our feet are actually connected to the ground. And it's even better if we can do that in the sand or in the grass or out places that are not in our home or like on concrete, but actually on the natural ground. So if anybody has ever tried earthing, you could put that in the chat and let us know how that's gone for you. But I will tell you, for me, I try to go. I try to go without shoes as much as I can. I really only put them on when I go outside and I have to leave the property. And I find that my connection to the earth has strengthened because of that. I find like my energy feels more balanced because I've been doing that practice for a while. All right, so besides earth energy, we also have sky and cosmic energy as well. So we might talk about as a witch. So now this emanates from the sun, from the stars, from the planets, from the rest of the universe. Now, if we're talking about sky or sun energy, usually it's perceived as masculine. When we talk about lunar energy or moon energy, usually perceived as feminine. Besides that type of energy, we also have elemental and divine energy that we might talk about as a witch. And so that is energy that's emanating from the elements, from the spirits, from the divinity around us. Witches may use all of these forms of energy in their practices and during their rituals. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk about is what does energy feel like? Because I get people frequently who will say, "Well, I'm not even really sure that I can move energy in my body, or I don't know how it feels, or like I've never experienced anything like this." And so, before we can begin to work with energy, we really need to know what it feels like, right? And once we know what it feels like and you can experience it in yourself, then you'll be able to move it around. You'll be able to charge objects. You'll be able to send healing energy, right? So what we are going to do now is we're going to try a couple of exercises so you can feel it. And this will be especially good for those of you who feel like, I'm not sure I know what energy feels like, but it will also be good for others who maybe will learn some different energy raising techniques. The important thing to remember is that energy feels different for everybody. So what you absolutely don't want to do is go to somebody, hear them describe it to you, and then say it doesn't happen to you because it's not the same way. It's going to be different for people in different situations. So it can feel different to release energy as opposed to receive energy, right? So projecting might feel different than receiving. Um, for some people, energy feels like a vibration. For other people, it feels like tingling, warmth, coldness. We have a wide variety of ways this can come across. Temperature shifts, perhaps. Pins and needles, pressure changes around you or in the body. Now, anybody who's not used to working with energy should kind of manage their expectations around this and realize that it will take some time to feel it if you've never felt it before. But it does get easier with time, it gets easier with practice, and once you can feel it, then you will be good at moving it and doing some of the things we're going to talk about next. So let's start with probably the simplest way that a person can feel energy, and that is through hand rubbing. So what you will do with hand rubbing is you're just going to begin to rub your hands together. And the very first thing, why I like this method, is the very first thing you're going to notice is kinetic energy that's being produced as heat. So you're going to immediately feel your hands start to warm up. And that is energy. That is physical energy that you're building there. But what's going to happen is after we start to build this in the physical body, this will transfer over into the pranic body, into the energy body, because those two bodies are so interconnected. And what I would recommend too is that if somebody's going to try this, you don't want to do this for like 5 seconds and say, oh, it didn't work or it did work. You're going to want to do this for up to a minute, because you're going to see in a second why. Okay, so I feel like we're about ready. Okay, so once you are ready to stop moving the hands, what we're going to experience is that the physical body has stopped, but the energetic body is going to keep moving. Okay, so stop. You might want to close your eyes so you can shut out all your other senses and just notice what it feels like in between your hands. So some people may feel a tingling. Usually I feel like a pulse here, a pulsation. And if you can't really feel it, see what happens if you move the hands a little bit closer together. And what sometimes people will experience is that it feels like there's something there between your hands, even though you can't see it. And it may feel like it's not so easy to push them together because there feels like there's something subtly there. Now, if you kind of lose the feeling or you didn't feel it the first time, then you would go back to the hand rubbing and you would keep trying that until you start to feel something in your hands. But what the really why we're doing this too is we want to make sure that we're aware of what it feels like for us. So I told you that mine feels like pulsing, but yours may feel like coldness, hotness, tingling, pins and needles. It could feel like any of those things, and we want to find out what it feels like for you. Now, another way that you can raise energy, so if the hand rubbing doesn't work for people, what I then recommend people try is the nail bed rubbing. Now, if you have beautifully manicured nails, you may not want to do this. It's up to you. I don't play guitar, so they're always they're not beautiful in any way, and I don't care if I do this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to rub the fingernail beds together. So it's going to look like this. So I'm just basically rubbing the nail beds together. And like the other exercise, I want to do this for about a minute. I don't want to do it for 5 seconds and then say it did or it didn't work. Now, why I like this exercise is I've had people come to me later who said, I never really felt it when we were rubbing our hands together, but all of a sudden I feel it when we do this. So it's just a really nice alternative for us. So it's kind of vigorous like this. And we're probably at a place where we can try to see if we can experience it. Now, I like this method because it's very good for charging an object. So once we're ready to stop, again, what's going to happen is the physical body will have stopped moving, but the energetic body is still moving. That's what you feel. Okay, now stop now. And then what I usually tell people to do is kind of hold your hands out like this and see what you feel. Some people will feel kind of a tingling in the fingertips, vibration in the finger pads. Sometimes people will feel it in the palms. You can then send that energy that you have raised down into an object. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. Right now, we're really just trying to feel the energy. Okay, so I hope that between one of those two exercises, you were able to feel a little bit of something. If you still can't, then what I would do is I move on to like a bigger movement, like a Kundalini energy exercise. And so I'm just going to show one very quickly. Many different ones you can use. So this is goalpost arms. And so what you're going to do is you'll have your arms raised like this, and you'll take a breath in, inhale. And then on the exhale, you bring your hands together like that so that they're not touching. There's still going to be a couple inches between them. And then on the exhale, you open them up again. So it's like inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And like any of the exercises, again, we don't want to do this for about 5 minutes and then say it's done. I want to do this for more like, sorry, I don't mean 5 minutes, I meant 5 seconds, and say it's, I didn't feel it or I did feel it. I want to do this for about a minute and see what happens. And I really want to link the breath to the movement. Right now I'm talking to you guys, so I'm not really doing the exercise the right way. But hopefully at home, you guys are doing it. You're doing inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And I think we're probably at about 30 seconds, so it's probably enough to feel a little bit of something. And then when you are done with that, what you're going to do is stop. I would recommend holding the breath. You can bring your hands back down to your lap and then just hold your breath for a second or two, and then exhale it, and then just close your eyes and just feel your body. And I can feel movement. I can feel the energy moving in my shoulders. I can feel it kind of in my upper part of my body, maybe not in my lower part, but I definitely can feel it moving there. So for anybody who's never felt energy, that's what it is. It's what's happening is the physical body has stopped moving, the energetic body continues to move. Okay, so once we have, and then a fourth way that we can also quickly feel energy is through different breath work. So doing quick breath work, fast breath work, like panting, like pant like a dog for 30 seconds to a minute, and then suspend your breath, hold it for a few seconds, let it go, and then feel what's going on, and you'll be able to likely be able to feel energy that way as well. So once we've got the energy raised, well, what do we do with it? So different things we can do. We can ground, which basically means moving energy either from the earth into us or from us into the earth. We can center, which means moving energy from anywhere into one specific location of the body. So a lot of times when people center energy, it's really up to where the center of the body is for that person. The majority of the people are going to tell you that their center is either their heart or their solar plexus. Okay, so if I was I could raise energy. So let's say I could draw energy up from the earth, and then I could draw it into my heart or into my solar plexus to center it there in my body. So that would be what centering is. Now for charging, we'll move energy from us into an object. So I have a crystal, just happens to be sitting here on the computer. So what I could do is I could charge this crystal through raising energy. So I could raise energy through the nail bed method. I could raise it through the hand rubbing method. I could do my Kundalini energy exercises. I could just mentally move the energy. But when I charge it, I'm then directing the energy into this object, which will now hold and carry that energy for me. So that would be charging. Another thing we can do is we can channel energy, which means that we use our own body to move energy from one spot to another spot. So a really easy example of this is through automatic writing. So when we're doing automatic writing, we're using the body to transmit energy from wherever. It could be from the spirit world, it could be from our own higher self, but we're transmitting that energy through our body onto paper and out into the physical world. We can send light energy, so this would be like Reiki. So once we can feel and we can move energy, we can send energy to ourselves, we can send energy to other people, to animals, to plants. And so when people say, I want to learn Reiki, what I would recommend is get your Reiki 1, take a class in Reiki, and hopefully they'll do kind of a deep dive into the chakras as well. But if they don't, I would recommend anybody who wants to become very good at Reiki should also study the chakras, because understanding how energy moves through that system of your own body and somebody else's can go a long way in making you very effective as a healer. And then another thing that you can do is you can raise the energy and basically move it into kind of one spot to be released out into the universe. So this is something that I do frequently in my spell work, is I will typically raise energy, and I might do it through breath work or through the finger scraping or through some kind of a Kundalini energy exercise. And then I will kind of bring it all into one spot, and then I will release it at the right time, and I'll send that energy out into the universe and project it out. So I will mention here too, because I know I'm going quickly through a lot of material, but if you are interested in learning more about energy, we have a whole section on this in our Demystifying Witchcraft course, which is actually being released later this summer. And that's a full course on witchcraft that includes a big portion on energy. And like I mentioned, we also do energy work in our Shadow Seekers membership. So already I've kind of mentioned some of this, but how can energy be raised? Well, you really only need your mind. So at the end of the day, you can move energy simply by willing it to with your own intentions. But most people prefer some kind of a tangible method. So you can clapping, any kind of movement and sound, noise, this is all going to raise energy. So a lot of clapping, dancing, intuitive movement will raise energy, chanting, singing, drumming. Things that bring you into a trance state can also be very good at raising energy. Breathing in specific patterns, holding your breath, hand rubbing, like we talked about earlier, finger scraping, and then of course mentally moving energy through your channels. Now, once the energy is raised, we can use it to charge an item. So you might have a talisman or an amulet, something you want to carry or put in your car, hang above the door of your house. Let's say you're making a house blessing sachet, and you put all of your herbs in it, and then you tie it up, and then you want to raise some energy and charge it. And you're sending basically your energy and your intentions into the object. Other things we can do is send that energy to a person or to a place. We can do our spell work and our ritual work when we're raising energy. We can do healing work. Another thing that we can do, which I think everybody should basically consider doing this first before they do anything, is use the energy to break up the stuck and stagnant energy that's in your own body. Because what's going to happen is that if we may be trying to pursue spiritual, our spiritual evolution, right? But a lot of times we forget that we're carrying all this energy in our bodies. And so one thing that is an unfortunate reality of the time period that we've chosen to incarnate into is our modern lifestyle. It really does a number on our energy. So the brain itself has evolved exponentially over the past, several hundred years, but the body hasn't changed all that much in thousands of years. And what that means is that from that perspective, things that were once so like let's say the fight or flight response, for example. If we were living a couple thousand years ago, would be real dangers out in the world. Now there aren't real dangers today, but they're different kinds. And so we would be, suppose you're in a forest and there is a predator that is coming after you, and you would go into kind of the fight or flight response, and so you flee, right? And so your body is burning off all that energy as you flee, and then you get to safety, and then the body returns itself to its normal state. But what happens in the modern world is that we don't really burn that energy off. We raise that energy during kind of that fight or flight moment, and we don't let go of it. So think about like being in traffic and someone cuts you off, and somebody yells at you, right? And you get angry. There's no burning off of that energy. It sits in your body. In addition to that, trauma, there's new research that suggests that our traumas can actually get frozen in parts of our body. And sometimes those parts of the body make sense. Like a person who is sexually abused may get some energy frozen or stuck in their hips or near their sex organs, right? But sometimes that energy goes into places that don't even make any sense. Like you can get it frozen in your foot or in your shoulder, different places like that. In a way to know, I would say that the majority of us have stuck and stagnant energy in our body. And the way to really think about it is like, think about your aches and your pains that don't seem to have like an explanation. They probably have some kind of a physical explanation. Like the neck pain that a person might get could be because they're sitting on a computer for too long, right? You get tech neck. But at the same time, we might be carrying energy from something that happened to us years and years and years ago. So what that means is that we want to do something to help move that energy. Otherwise, it's just sitting there. So we can do our activating breath work, all the kind of the same things I've talked about earlier. All of this can be used to just kind of move the energy in your body. Kundalini energy exercises, flow style asana. So that was just like the movement, yoga kind of moving exercises. Yin yoga, which is where you stay in one position for 5 to 10 minutes. And while it might seem like that's not doing anything, what it actually does is it relaxes the physical body enough that it kind of lets go. And then you can get deeper down into that breath body or that energy body, and start to let go of some of that stuck and stagnant energy that's there. And we can also work with our individual chakras. So learning where our major blockages are by paying attention to the body and where we're carrying energy. Sometimes it won't even feel like a pain. It'll just feel like something's here. Like it just feels like there's something pressure here. And that usually means that I'm holding something in that part of the body. Now, good news is I have episodes on all of the chakras, with the exception of the crown, which I'll be making at some point. But what you can do is, if you're really interested in chakra work, I'd recommend going in watching some of those previous episodes on our Body Mind Witchcraft YouTube channel. If you are in Shadow Seekers, you're in an even better position because we go through all of the chakras in much greater depth there. But learning how to balance your energy will help you accelerate your spirituality and your evolution. And honestly, if you start to really work with your energy, you will be amazed at where it takes your spirituality and where it takes you spiritually. All right, so I am going to move into the Q&A now, and I see a few others have joined us. Hi, I see Melinda's here. I'm not sure if I'm seeing all the comments, but I see a few here. So I'm moving into the Q&A. I have a couple that people left me, and then anybody who's here live, feel free to ask some questions as well. And of course, if you are watching in replay, you can leave questions too, and I'll answer them during the next episode. Okay, so my first question I have here is from Beverly, and she's wondering about some reference books that I recommend about witchcraft. So, a question I get asked a lot, and I often will recommend kind of the same books because I think these are some of the best books out there on witchcraft. And personally, I will never recommend a book that I have not read. Okay, so these are all books that I've read. So, those of you who followed me a while, you probably know what I'm about to pull out. But this is Christopher Penczak's The Outer Temple of Witchcraft. This is a great go-to 101 book for somebody who's beginning. It goes through everything. It's going to talk about rituals, tools, elements, deities, um, spell work, casting circles. All of it's in this one book. So I really love this book. It's a dense book. It's about, I think it's like 13 chapters, 12 chapters. And so what I recommend a person do is not blaze through this book. I recommend that someone read maybe a chapter a week or even a chapter every couple of weeks and really immerse yourself in it, because Christopher Penczak leaves some exercises in each chapter that you can do. So just really dive into that material, because there is this idea, if a person was going to initiate into a coven, for example, they're often asked to either kind of be around that coven or study for a year and a day. And I think that there's some great truth and value in that, because in taking our time with material is where I'm going with this. So, really savor this book. Don't blaze through it. Now, a second book that I like to pair it with is The Inner Temple of Witchcraft. And if you are interested in the things that I talked about tonight, this book goes into more of that in depth. So this book is about magic, meditation, and psychic development. So this goes into more of the energy behind witchcraft, whereas The Outer Temple, is more about kind of the Witchcraft 101, like how do we do witchcraft. So I love both of these books. If a person is interested in Wicca in particular, Raven Grimassi is a great author. This book is called The Wiccan Magic, and there's a second book, it's called Wiccan Mysteries. They're kind of companions to one another. Fantastic books. Probably, I don't even know the year I got this. Probably one of the very first books I ever bought on the path. I love him as an author. He's got other books as well that you can check out, but I highly recommend this for anybody who's interested in the Wiccan path. And you could read that in addition to the Penczak books. And then a go-to classic is Starhawk's Spiral Dance. This book is when I bought this is called the 20th anniversary edition. I think we're probably on the 40th anniversary by now. This is a classic text that goes through kind of the reemergence of goddess worship and paganism and witchcraft in the United States in particular, but all over in general. Starhawk has some exercises in here as well that you can go through. But overall, I just think her books are fantastic, and I think that I don't like extremes, but I think she should be on the must-read list. At least read one Starhawk book in your studies somewhere along the path. So I hope that those books help. Those would be a great place to get started. Anybody, though, who is interested in videos, check out our Body Mind Witchcraft YouTube channel, because we also have a lot of videos on some of the topics that are in these books as well. All right, second question I've got is from Suzanne. So Suzanne said, with shadow work, how do I know that I'm doing it correctly? So it's a very good question, because how does a person know, right? So I think I would go back to a rhetorical question that I would ask is, how does a person know that, like, let's say you had strep throat and you went to the doctor and they gave you penicillin. How do you know that it's working? So generally what people are going to say is the sore throat went away, the fever came down, they feel better, they have more energy, they can eat more, they can move more, they're back to normal, right? So how does a person know, like if you start to go to therapy, how do you know that therapy works? Same kind of idea, it's because you feel better. And so how do we know that shadow work is working? Well, we know it's working when we start to feel better. And but what we do want to make sure is that we're managing our expectations about this kind of work. And I say this about therapy. I would say this about therapy too. Like sometimes people have major breakthroughs in one session of therapy, but a lot of times it takes a person longer to actually get to where they want to be. Same goes with shadow work. It can take a while. This isn't work that we dabble in. We don't do it for a month and we're like, okay, I did shadow work, it's over. This is the work that evolves your soul. This is the work that helps you take this incarnation you've chosen and really figure out uh, how to bust through your blockages, all the things that are holding you back so that you can evolve into your next incarnation in your next life. So this is not work that we take lightly or we do short term. It's work that probably people would do long term once they come to the path. But immediately, what people will notice as they start to engage in shadow work, they're going to start to notice one thing comes pretty early in it is they notice that their triggers are there, but they don't bother them as much anymore. So if you start to notice there are things that once bothered you really badly and they don't really phase you as much anymore, you're going to know that your shadow work is working. So that's one of the big kind of telltale signs of it. But also people who are perhaps they're like stuck, right? They've felt stuck in their lives, and then all of a sudden they start to see that energy start moving. You're just going to start to see shifts in your life, and sometimes they'll be subtle. Or a person who's, really, a lot of people come to shadow work and they have issues with their self-belief and their self-confidence and their self-esteem, and they start to see that stuff moving and changing and shifting. And that's really how we know that the shadow work is working, is by those subtle kind of shifts in us that we see. So I hope that helps. And I do have a third question that it wasn't really written. It wasn't one that was given to me for this particular episode, but someone put it in the chat. In fact, it was Sonia. Sonia put it in the chat a couple episodes ago. And I answered it at the time. And then I sometimes these questions come in and then I start to think about them more on my walk. And I'm like, oh, I would love to add to that answer. So I'm gonna bring that question back up today. So that question is, I wish I had it written down. I should have gone earlier and gotten it. But the gist of the question is, so in energy work, we're kind of told to release our negative emotions and release our negative energy, right? We're told to like let go, get rid of it. And then in our shadow work, we're told to look at all of kind of our shadow aspects and our shadow parts, and we're told to acknowledge them and integrate them back into us. So her question was, which one is it? I'm getting kind of confused. I'm being told to let go of some stuff and then kind of acknowledge some stuff and bring it closer to me. And so it's a fantastic question. And so I wanted to just address sort of my view on it and how a person would actually, I think the answer to the question is we do all of that at once. And so when it comes to our shadow aspects, one that comes to mind for me is anger. I know a lot of people write to me and they say, I've got a lot of anger I'm trying to let go of. So what we are doing when we're letting go of anger is we're letting go of the negative emotions. We're letting go of kind of the negative energy that's attached to it. That we want. We don't want that building in us, right? So we want to let go of those negative energy, that negative energy. Perhaps we're doing it through Kundalini energy work, breath work, chakra work, balancing, right, Reiki, different things like that. But at the end of the day, we also have to acknowledge that the anger is a part of us. It's a shadow aspect that's in us. And we can't just push it away because that is us ignoring it. We can let go of the immediate feelings that we're carrying. We can let go of the anger about that guy who messed up with us 5 years ago or a parent who disappointed us when we were kids. We can let go of those emotions, but the anger is inside of us. And so it's part of us. It's part of our personality. And so we want to embrace that, right? So I've told this, I think I told this a couple of episodes ago about my own anger and where it comes from and kind of this, just kind of, I get angry about the disenfranchisement of various people in this world and how unfair things are and the abuse that people suffer and animals suffer and all of that. And that can build inside of me, right? So I want to acknowledge it. Yeah, I have anger over all that stuff. I can let go of kind of the negative emotions and energy I'm carrying in that given moment. But at the end of the day, I've got to acknowledge my anger. And so my anger can then get funneled out into other things. So it can get funneled out into art or music that I create or writing that I do. Or I think, honestly, I funnel some of it out into this. Helping people heal in a really messed up world is another way to like funnel my anger. But I can also funnel it into video games, right? Or various places where or hiking. I told that the other day about when I get really angry, I want to just climb a mountain really like aggressively, right? And get that out, but acknowledge that's inside of me. And I hope that when we channel it and we harness it for the right purpose, that becomes an aspect of us that's no longer terrifying. Because I think really what it is we're afraid that it's going to bust out in the wrong place, right? Or people are going to look at us and think bad things about us. But we all have it. We all have anger. We all have aggression. We all have these negative emotions. So going to how are we going to find the best outlet for those things? That's really what we're doing in the shadow work, acknowledging it and then finding good ways to use it. But then what Sonia was asking about with kind of the releasing is we're letting go of the negative energy that we're carrying day to day around things that have happened to us. So I hope that helps. But that is, I wanted to address that question again because I thought it was such a great question. So if anybody is here in the chat and has a question, I don't see any right now. So I'm going to go on and tell you a little bit about what's coming up. But if you've got any questions, you've got a few minutes to leave them there. So coming up next is the Pacific Moon Circle that I am a speaker in is going to be coming out on June 20th. So I hope this will work. Okay, I'm putting a link in the chat right now. And this is I'm sorry, I said Pacific Moon Circle. It's Phoenix Moon Circle. So this is an online summit. It is women-centered because all the speakers are women, and they are going to be addressing some of the issues that women have just kind of living in this world. But this circle is open to anybody of any gender who is interested in kind of the divine feminine, connecting to spirituality and healing. It's open to everybody. So you can join this for free. Like I said, it's a free online summit. It's going to start on June 20th, and then I think it's going to air for like 10 days or something like that. And every day there's going to be some interviews with different speakers on different topics. My topic is using shadow work and energy work for self-healing. So you can tune in and listen to me and support me in my interview. And you'll also hear some really great interviews from some other wonderful speakers. So over the next 10 days or so until the summit begins, I'll be sharing more in the group and in our email list about these different speakers. But I think it's a really great summit to check out. And it's all free, like I said. And there is an option where if a person wanted to keep the recordings forever, you can pay a really small price later and keep them. But otherwise, this is all free. So I hope that some of you will sign up, support me, but also support these other women who are sharing their stories. And everybody's going to be sharing just tips and strategies on how to kind of evolve ourselves spiritually, different daily rituals we can do to get our energy back on track and be our best selves that we can be. So that is coming up starting on June 20th, but you can sign up and register right now, and that way you'll receive all the emails that will tell you what to do, how to tune in and listen to the interviews. On 6/18, that's next Tuesday, we'll have an episode on summer solstice because we'll only be 2 days away from the solstice. So we'll be talking about that. There will be no public summer solstice ritual this year. We've decided to do our ritual only for our Coven and our Shadow Seekers members. But I will be sharing, during that episode, I will be sharing some ideas that people can use to celebrate solstice and Litha. And then on 6/25, I'm not sure what our episode is yet. I put a question mark there. But if anybody has any suggestions, I'm always taking suggestions on new episodes. All right, so I don't see any questions here in the chat. could be that I'm missing any. So if I missed anybody's questions, then I will go back later and I will answer all of those. So I'm going to sign off for tonight. I hope you'll have a great rest of your night. And for those who are wondering why this is Tuesday, who are live with me, we've switched the night from Wednesday to Tuesday for the summer. So we'll be airing Tuesdays, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern for the duration of the summer. All right, until next time, blessed be.